Hi y'all, my name is Melody Lee and thanks for stopping by. And in this video I'm going to be discussing two of the books that I read this last week. They were both book club choices, however one of them I wasn't able to get to until this last week, and the other one is for this month. What I'll do, it's a true crime book club and I will list the links to it below and who to follow for that. So what I'll do is I'll get started. So the first book that I'm going to briefly discuss now, I've decided not to get into deeply with each of the books themselves due to the content. I've decided to step away from that just at this moment because some of the content may be too graphic as well. So I want to make sure that you're aware of this. Also, I will please advise that there can be a trigger warning with what we're about to discuss, which includes essay and things of that nature, along with murder. Okay, so the first book that I read was Ice and Bone, Tracking an Alaskan Serial Killer, and that's by Monty Francis. I've gave that book 4 stars. It has a 3.85 stars on Goodreads, and I will read the synopsis for you and let you know a bit of my thoughts. On a clear, brisk night in September of 2000, 33-year-old Della Brown was found SA and beaten to death inside a filthy abandoned shed in a seedy part of Anchorage, Alaska. She was one of 6 women, mostly Native Alaskans, slain that year. Stoking fears a serial killer was on the loose, a tan and thuggish 20-year-old would eventually implicate himself in 3 of the women's deaths and confessed in detail to Della's murder. Yet after a 3-month trial, Joshua Wade would walk free. In 2007, when Wade kidnapped a well-loved nurse psychologist from her home and then executed her in the remote wilderness of Wasilla, 2 astute female detectives joined forces to finally bring him to justice. Ice and Bone is the chilling true account of how a demented murderer initially evaded police and avoided conviction, only to slip back into the shadows and kill again. Journalist and writer Monty Francis tells the harrowing story of what eventually led to Wade's capture and reveals why the true scope of his murderous rampage is now, more than a decade later, coming into view. Now, I've not actually heard of this story. To be honest, I did not know that. I was still in America in 2000, but I did not know about the murder of the Native Alaskan women. Now, in reading in this book, then what I think is that they didn't put a spotlight. I think there are some racial prejudices against Native Alaskan women, especially during this time, because it was only until a white woman got killed that he actually ended up in jail. The first case is just a complete abomination, and it tells of how the police can get things completely wrong and that the jury can get things completely wrong. Also, and when it comes to the jury picking of the first trial, there was no Native people within the jury as well. And most of those jurors voted that they couldn't convict him because there wasn't enough evidence and things like that. But it's the constant getting away with things that is really disturbing, because if they had stopped him at the beginning, these later people would have not died. Because you find out, because what you think is the book's quite long, but it goes straight into the first murder and then it goes into the trial and everything like that, and then it goes into the death of the nurse. I can't remember her name right at this moment. Let me see if I have that. I should actually have that on here. Mindy Schloss was the nurse that was killed. It does give some detail about the victims themselves, but it doesn't go into the detail a lot about the victims, which I think is a bit well, I would have wanted to know more about the victims and about their families and things like that. It does give accounts of how the families felt and how they're dealing with the processes and things like that. but this is more of a complete, you could have caught them and they wouldn't have done it. And I believe that Joshua Wade has now been confessing to other murders in the area as well. Basically, he's quite nonchalant about it, and it's quite disturbing when it comes down to it, and all the details are quite disturbing. I gave this book 4 stars because I thought that it's important to see the transparency of how the case should not have been lost, and he should have been in jail before, and that this was completely justice gone wrong, sort of thing. So that was Ice and Bone by Monty Francis. If you want to pick that up, if you want to learn more about the actual crimes and things like that, there are some resources on the internet. However, it's few and far between because I think this is not a well-known case. It's a disturbing case, but it's not well known. Whereas the next book I'm going to tell you about is a well-known case. And that is the last book that I read. And it was, 2 seconds, The Lost Girls, The True Story of the Cleveland Abductions and the Incredible Rescue of Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina DeJesus. This one synopsis, and this book has a rating of 4.05 stars, and I gave it a rating of 4 stars, and it is by John Glatt, who is a reader that we have seen before. And The Lost Girls tells the truly amazing story of Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight, who were kidnapped, imprisoned, and repeatedly and beaten in a Cleveland house for over a decade by Ariel Casher, and their amazing escape in May 2013, which made headlines all over the world. The book has an exclusive interview and photographs of Ariel Casher's secret fiancé, who spent many romantic nights in his house of horror without realizing he had bound and chained captives just a few feet away. There are also revealing interviews with several of the Casher family members, musician friends, and several neighbors who witnessed the dramatic rescue. Now, this book goes actually quite in detail. It does tell a lot about the story of the women as well as Casher himself, and it goes into his past up to the kidnappings as well as what happened after the kidnappings, and everything that encompasses with it. It tells the story of how the girls how they coped after as well. But again, this one is more of a, you could have caught him. There was many chances of catching him, but you didn't before this all happened. There was so many times that he could have been put away before he had done these things. And it's just that misjustice. There's so much misjustice within these 2 books. That's why when I was reading both of them and I read them back to back, I probably shouldn't have, because it does make you quite upset in regards to the content and the material. Because some books, like, you can sort of remove yourself from the crime because the crime was done so many years ago. However, these were very recent and in recent memory, and I do remember this happening because it was on worldwide news that this happened. The way that he treated one of the girls much better than the other 2, it's just beyond shocking. And the fact that he had a girlfriend at the time that he committed these crimes, and he still played in a band and did all this. And the one major fact that stood out for me is that he was a school bus driver, and they had many opportunities to get him out of that environment. And he should have never been with those children and never been out and about. And I can't believe the manipulation that he did with his family as well. His own children he manipulated. It is just a catastrophic amount of lies, deceit, and horrific crimes that could have been prevented. I don't know, like, hindsight, we always say hindsight is 20/20, and maybe, like, yeah, we're giving somebody the benefit of the doubt, but if they do the same thing over and over and over again, then why aren't we stopping these people? And it was like he was always in trouble, always gonna have this. And then he goes and does that and completely picks it. Like I said, I'm not discussing the completely details of the horrific instance that occurred. As if you do want to read these books, you can go in and read those, but they are very traumatic and very, very triggering, especially to anyone who has been SA or domestic abuse or anything like that. They are very, very triggering to those sort of things, and it was really hard to listen to as well. I say I read these books, I did listen to them on Audible and while I was working out in the garden, which kind of kept my mind focused on two tasks at the same time so that I didn't fall in the trap of being extremely upset in regards to these. And sometimes that's the way I process things, is I have to do something else at the same time. I don't know if you're like that, but I think many of us are, especially when it comes into difficult situations. You need to take yourself away from them. But like I said, both of these books have a common theme, and that is justice was not served the first time, and that these people were out on the streets when they should have not been out on the streets. I will leave the details of the books below, and like I said, the book club, if you do like this video and you want to see more of me, I'm hopefully going to have some more happier books. Well, I say happier, fiction books that aren't as set in reality and not true stories, that I will be discussing in the near future. There is a bit that I had put on here, and that is true crime. If I'm going to do any more true crime book readings, then what I'm going to do is those books need to be of a certain age where we are far enough removed from the initial crimes for me to discuss them. And if any of them are about children or anything like that, I am not going to discuss the details of that. More or less, I do have an interest in serial killers. It is a healthy interest because, to be honest, I don't want to be the victim of a serial killer, but we all can say, but there's like 99% chance that it won't happen. However, you never know. But what I will say is, if you do have an interest in those sort of things, you can visit the my list on this channel about true crime. And like I said, I will try to in the future, I'm going to try to keep it more or less out of certain specific topics that can be quite triggering to people. I think that we could go off of a true crime that it doesn't have to deal with either murder or SA or that sort of thing, which most of these have to. But at the moment, I'm going to keep it light and airy-fairy and try to focus on fiction books or books about positive people or non-fiction historical books and things like that. So I say, if you enjoyed this video, if you like me, if you enjoy my ramblings, then you can subscribe if you want to click the button. Apparently you can click a notification bell and you'll get notifications that I have posted, and you can give this a thumbs up and you can share with your friends. Do all the things. As with all my videos, I want everyone to stay safe, stay positive, and keep a happy mindset, and move forward in their lives the best they can. And I will see you next time. I love you, and goodbye.